This video is about checking Endplay after the engine and the transmission have been mated. The story goes like this. Prior to engine installation, I called Roush to let them know I got everything and I was unboxing everything and should I know something, and because truthfully I looked at all this stuff and I didn't know what bolt went where and how the whole thing went together. But after watching some YouTube videos, which I posted about in my forum posts, I was well acquainted with how to put it together. And I called up Roush. The guy gave me some homework. He said, lay everything out. Dennis Korn, the manager. And he said, lay everything out and get familiar with it. That's your homework for the weekend. This was 2 weeks ago. Anyway, I called him on Monday, or Tuesday rather, and he said, how did it go? And I said, well, I did some extra credit. I installed the engine. He said, great news, great news. I want to give you a piece of advice. And I said, well, what's the advice? He said, well, you would want to have done this prior to installing the engine into the car, so you would have had a little bit more room to work. But did you check to make sure that you preserved the end play and the crankshaft? And I had a sinking feeling because I thought I'd have to take my whole engine out to do this. But luckily, I don't have to do that. What I did have to do was purchase a micrometer from Harbor Freight, and I placed it on the oil pan, and it's magnetic, and the needle of the micrometer touches the nut, the inner nut of the crankshaft. Okay, well, on the back of this pulley is a harmonic balancer, and I was told by Roush to put a little bit of pressure on it to bring the crankshaft forward, and again on the other side of the flywheel to bring the crankshaft backwards to make sure that end play was preserved. Now, I've already done this, but I'm going to do this again for demonstration purposes. We should see about 5 1,000ths to 10 1,000ths of end play. So I got this pry bar from Lowe's this week. I wrapped it in leather and duct tape so it's nice and padded, and I'm going to place it behind the harmonic balancer. And I'm not going to use a lot of force here. I'm just going to use enough, but you can see I just used a tiny bit and it already moved. I'm going to use a little more, and you can see that I have end play. Now when I remove my pry bar, which I've done, nothing moved on the number. Here's my pry bar. You see, nothing moved. That means that the crankshaft is pushed forward in the engine and maybe even touching that thrust bearing in the front. Now the reason we want to do this is because if the transmission was installed and pinched and pressed the pilot bearing forward inside, thus pressing the crankshaft forward against the thrust bearing, we can blow our thrust bearing. And if we blow our thrust bearing, then we ruin the day. Next, I'm going to take this same pry bar and I'm going to come in, I'm going to come in over here like this, and I'm just going to give it a little pry. Not a lot of pressure here, guys. We're just using a very little amount. And we're going to watch that the crankshaft moves back. And this went down all the way to 0. Okay, so we know we've preserved end play. The engine's good. It's safe to fire. A little 5-minute video. I am doing all of this for the first time. I've consulted many experts. I am not an expert myself, but I feel comfortable after consulting with so many people, 5 or 6, that this is the right way to do it. Nobody of those 5 or 6 people that I spoke to, these experts, said don't do it. And Frankly, when Dennis told me to do it, I was nervous. But now having done it, you know, it's one more notch under my belt of things to know how to do and check for when building a car. And now I feel confident I can proceed with the build, knowing I've got the heart of the car is gonna fire nicely. Anyway, just wanted to make this video. So if you detach your transmission from your engine, put on a new clutch, it's always good to do this just to make sure you haven't jammed up your crankshaft when installing the new or the new clutch rather, or the new bell housing, or the new whatever that you've changed in your build, or if it's just basic assembly like what I'm doing. Anyway, hope this helps. It's only meant to help. Have a good one, and thanks a lot.